there is a group of people rather who find Candace Owens to be absolutely spectacularly a pain in their arse for reasons I don't know. I think it has something to do with the fact that she's been that much of an impact, or had that much of an impact on this. And what I'm about to tell you right now sends these people over the edge, because Candace Owens did not just comment on the Epstein document release, she detonated the complacency around it. You see, while legacy outlets, the usual suspects, try to minimize the impact with procedural language and this kind of a selective framing, this innocuous descriptions, Candace treated the dump like what it actually was, a pressure rupture, like an aneurysm that burst in a system built on silence and protection and controlled memory hole forgetting. See, that difference in posture is everything. Most media actors approach the files as a kind of a bureaucratic event, She approaches them as a moral reckoning. I love that word, the reckoning. And the first thing that Candace understood was timing. Information only matters if people are emotionally prepared to receive it. Years of distrust towards corporate media and government agencies and elite power structures created pretty fertile ground. See, instead of watering down the moment with legal hedging and polite disclaimers, she went straight to the core question the public wanted answered. Who protected Epstein? Oh my God. And who else was involved? You notice that? They're on strict orders. Don't say anything. Don't say what we know you're going to say. Don't bring up the obvious. Who benefited from this? Cui bono? Who looked away? And why does the same pattern repeat every time power is involved? Every time, almost automatically. What made her impact explosive was her persistence. You see, the modern news cycle is engineered to exhaust attention. Stories burn hot for maybe 48 hours. I say 3 days max. And then they vanish under the next, manufactured outrage or stupid story. Now, Candace refused to let that happen. She returned to the topic repeatedly. She reframed it, asked exactly what they didn't want to be asked, and she connected new disclosure to old unanswered questions, and voila, there she goes. And she kept the pressure on the narrative when the system expected some kind of fatigue or ennui or lethargy to set in. And that persistence exposed the most revealing part of the entire episode, the contradictions. Official explanations were shifting and talking points changed drastically, and the media tone adjusted week by week. At first it was framed as irrelevant, now who cares? Then it was minimized. Remember Ben Shapiro saying, there's nothing there, don't worry about nothing there. How do you say that? Then they tried to contextualize it, and then it was softened with language about complexity or nuance or something, I don't know. And Candace highlighted this nonsense and those pivots in real time. And when stories change, but accountability never arrives, so to speak, people notice. Remember, she went right to the courts. Who's involved? What are their connections? Is it intel, foreign countries? You do the math. And this is where her style becomes dangerous to those people who are involved in those who are interested. You see, she doesn't accept abstract answers. She wants meat and potatoes. Give me the truth. She doesn't let, these folks at these institutions hide behind vague language of, I don't know, whatever they think whatever you want to call it. See, when officials say that mistakes were made, she asks, well, who were they? Who were they? And they don't want to answer the question. When reporters say systems failed, she asks, well, who built those systems? And when spokespeople say, well, there is no evidence, she asks, well, why evidence was never pursued aggressively in the first place? See, whatever they say, she counters, unlike other people, like Ben Shapiro. This man, do you think there's any relevance to him whatsoever? Seriously, do you? Do you? See, another reason the Epstein dump gained traction through her platform is that she she refused to treat it as a celebrity scandal. You see, most coverage focused on sensational names and gossip-level details and surface drama, this kind of TMZ stuff. But Candace shifted attention to structural protection. Who were these people? What about prosecutorial discretion, non-prosecution agreements, intel, community overlap? Who are these people? What countries are involved in this? That's the question. That's what she asked. You see, that reframing elevated the entire conversation from kind of like voyeurism to accountability. And she always acts the same way. She forces a cultural discussion or conversation about selective outrage. And they hate that. Why do some victims receive nonstop coverage while others are forgotten? That's my favorite question. Why are certain perpetrators relentlessly pursued while others quietly fade from the headlines? Why does the system suddenly become, cautious and delicate when powerful people are implicated? You see, these are uncomfortable questions because they expose the hypocrisy in the outrage community. I want more analysis. That's what I'm trying to give you here. I don't want to take something that somebody else said, play it for you and say, see, you've heard this before. Plus, there comes a point sometimes when I'm not saying you're stealing people's content, but if I'm spending my time just playing other people's stuff and saying, I'd rather talk to you and refer you them accordingly. You know what truly turbocharged the moment was her audience engagement strategy. See, Candace encourages people to read documents themselves, to cross-reference timelines, and to examine patterns instead of just waiting for approved interpretations. See, that decentralization, if you will, of analysis, this is kryptonite to these centralized narrative control. When thousands of independent readers begin comparing notes, the gatekeepers lose their monopoly power over meaning. And this is also where the pushback intensified. You see, predictably, as you can imagine, critics of her accuse her of amplifying dangerous discourse. Oh, shut up. That phrase is always deployed when elites feel exposed. Dangerous to whom exactly? What, the truth? Not to the public. Public's not afraid of this. Dangerous to reputations, careers, and influence networks built on silence? Not ours. Maybe yours. See, Candace learned that if you go at it differently, people pay attention. See, she leans into that resistance instead of retreating. She says, I don't care what you have to say. The people who are finding this offensive, I don't care. They're the ones I'm targeting, if you haven't noticed. And every attempt to discredit her only amplifies this perception that uncomfortable truth is somehow being protected from exposure or sunlight. There's another factor, by the way. Another factor that can't be ignored is courage. There's professional risk in refusing to soften these topics. There's sponsorship pressure. There's platform scrutiny, coordinated smear campaigns. Yet Candace continues pushing forward because she understands something most commentators avoid. If you always speak inside safe boundaries, you never change anything. You never do. Real influence requires stepping outside comfort zones. And her approach also exposed the weakness of institutional messaging, I guess. Bureaucracies speak in a passive voice. Candace speaks directly. Institutions rely on obscurity. She demands clarity. And the gatekeepers, and you know who they are, rely on time to bury the stories. She refuses to let time do the work for them. That contrast made her coverage feel alive and critical and important. And while official responses just felt stale, they didn't respond. The Epstein dump, don't you like saying that, also reopened older unresolved controversies. Once the public realized how much was hidden in one case, curiosity blew up. People began revisiting archive stories, old sealed documents, forgotten settlements, suspicious coincidences. People went back, and we don't forget. And Candace didn't suppress that curiosity. She encouraged it responsibly by focusing on accountability rather than fantasy narratives. That distinction, my friend, matters tremendously. Asking questions all the time is not the same as making claims, but powerful systems prefer neither. You see, this entire episode reveals something deeper, a deeper truth, if you will, about modern media. Trust is earned through consistency and exposure and clarity. Candace has built an audience, and you know it's true, that expects her to confront uncomfortable topics with a boldness and a sense of humor and a surgical, an attendance, so to speak. She attends to things surgically. That credibility allowed her to shape the Epstein discussion in ways that traditional outlets just couldn't. See, people believed she wouldn't abandon the story halfway through. They know it exactly. Other elements that turbocharged the impact were emotional resonance. See, Candace framed the issue around victims, exploitation, very, very simple to understand stuff, and moral responsibility rather than these abstract politics. She basically grounds the entire conversation in human stakes. She looks at it and looks at you and tells you, this is what's happening, this is why they want me to go away. When coverage becomes too procedural, audiences disengage. It comes down to simply this. This is the most important. You want to find out what happened. You want to find out who are these people. And when she brought up the idea that there were other countries and other intel agencies, and there were people who had a real serious motivation to look the other way, people said, tell us more about this. And this drove the shadow government crazy. Absolutely nuts. The Epstein story is the biggest story ever. Candace Owens' involvement in this, by the way, with the serial destruction of Erica Kirk and TPUSA, they're gone. Let me just make this clear. They're gone. They're going to enjoy the last. They're settling up. They're closing down. It means nothing. Without Charlie and with this new exposure and a lot of the donors saying, forget this. What do they have to sell? Who? Who is going to replace Charlie? Who? Erica? They still don't know the damage they produced. They still don't understand it. So right now we're having, in one issue, we're having the fraud that was seen regarding TPUSA and this nonsense where people are saying, wow, I had no idea. Do they always act like this? Yes, they always act like that. Absolutely. And then you have Epstein. And for those people, also regarding a P-gate reference regarding a favorite Italian breaded item with cheese and sauce. Got to be careful with that word. We're going to call it P-gate, okay? Which sounds even worse, but you know what I mean. The pizza matter. People are saying, oh my God, we didn't listen. You were right the whole time. We laughed at you. Well, we're not going to laugh again. Same story, now introduced at levels you can't imagine. Think about that, my friend. I'm going to go now, Don Corleone, so you can be with your family. Thank you so much, my friends, for being a part of this. Thank you so very much. Thank you for paying attention to this. By the way, thank you for following my wife, Mrs. L, at Lynn's Warriors. Let me remind you, by the way, that February is Teen Dating Violence Awareness Month. And I'm telling you, listen to what she is saying. They are targeting our children, our young women, our young men in ways you can't imagine at every angle there is. Not just Epstein level, but all levels. Focus. We have to protect them. They are not just the future. They're humans who look to us to protect them. And I believe in a certain degree of chivalry, and I believe in a certain protection dynamic that I like to bring up. So follow her at Lynn's Warriors on YouTube. Also, my friends, like this video, subscribe to the channel, hit that little bell, and also hit that section regarding questions that we have later on as to those particular questions that I put up for you to review and the like. It's a fascinating issue. My friends, you're going to be hearing me talk about, as you can tell, Candace, Erica, Charlie, TPUSA, and now Epstein and the cover-ups and who gets brought, the Clintons dragged before. We are on the precipice of something so big and so huge and so colossal. I don't think any of these people truly understand it. Thank you, my friends. Thank you for your kindness. Thank you for letting me into your head. Thank you for letting me dissect yet again a subject what I think is probably the most fascinating subject I've seen in I don't know how long. Thank you for this. Have a great and glorious day. And comment, dear friends. Comment as you see fit.